In my past life, my half-sister married the young general, got divorced in shame. I wed a merchant's son, becoming the richest imperial merchant's wife. Jealous, she burned our home, killing me and Mom. Reborn, she rushed to marry that merchant's son, unaware his future wealth was my doing. This time, I'm marrying the general. I'll wait for the divorce. Welcome to my channel. If you like this story, please click to subscribe. There are more wonderful stories waiting for you to listen to. Chapter 1. Young Master Lu. Since my sister refuses, I can take her place. Lu Yunqiu's soft, coquettish voice sent a chill down my spine. Gazing at the girl before me, still in her maiden form, I realized with a jolt I had been reborn. This moment of rebirth coincided with Lu Fuda, the merchant's son, arriving at my father's invitation for our arranged meeting. I had just politely declined, saying I had no immediate desire to marry. Lu Fuda immediately grew displeased. Lu Yunqiu, are you looking down on me? Don't forget, this match was your father's decision. Do you think you have any say in the matter? I was about to retort. Lu Yunqiu suddenly barged in, declaring she was willing to marry Lu Fuda. Lu Fuda certainly hadn't anticipated that Lu Yunqiu, the second daughter who was clearly more favored in the Lu household, would actually want to marry him. He stared dumbstruck, utterly incredulous. It wasn't just him who was stunned, I too looked at Lu Yunqiu in surprise. In my previous life, my father, a lowly fourth-rank official, had the sheer luck of saving an old general once. The general's household then sought to form an alliance through marriage with ours. Upon hearing the news, Lu Yunqiu eagerly told her father she had set her heart on the young General Qin Yuzheng. This lifetime, she would marry no one but Qin Yuzheng. To that end, her mother spent every night whispering sweet nothings into my father's ear, that man who favored his concubines over his wife. Eventually, she succeeded in persuading him to bypass me, his unmarried eldest daughter, and instead send his concubine-born daughter to the general's mansion. To avoid public ridicule, my father hastily arranged a marriage for me before Lu Yunqiu's departure. The groom was Lu Fuda, the son of a merchant, a useless womanizer. Seeing Lu Fuda freeze, Lu Yunqiu's eyes grew even more alluring. She deliberately leaned into his embrace, her voice growing softer and more coquettish. Young Master Lu, I'm deeply in love with you. I want to marry you. Will you take me as your wife? Please? Watching her eagerness, greed, and impatience for success, I suddenly realized, like me, she must have been reborn too. I couldn't help but laugh. If someone was eager to jump into the fire pit, I couldn't ask for more. I feigned understanding and said, Young Master Lu, you and I truly aren't meant for each other. My sister holds such deep affection for you, I think you two would be quite suitable. Lu Fuda finally snapped out of it. His eyes lit up as he gazed at Lu Yunqiu, who radiated far more brilliance than I ever could. Perfect! Perfect! Marrying the second young miss would be my greatest honor. I'm more than willing, I'm absolutely thrilled. Lu Yunqiu had been favored more than me since childhood. Whether it was clothing, jewelry, or cosmetics, she always had better quality items than I did. Moreover, knowing Lu Fuda would come today, I deliberately made myself look far less attractive. When compared side by side, Lu Yunqiu naturally appealed more to men, especially to a shallow man like Lu Fuda, who only ever judged by appearances. Second miss, rest assured, I'll marry you in grand style. Overwhelmed by a beauty throwing herself at him, Lu Fuda's lust flared. He seized the moment to pull Lu Yunqiu close, his hands promptly wandering to her chest. I saw disgust flash across Lu Yunqiu's face. Yet she forced herself to endure it. No doubt she was biding her time for the sake of becoming an imperial merchant's wife someday. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. If this was what disgusted her, Then the truly repulsive things were yet to come. But this was her own choice. News of Liu Yunshua's sudden change of heart, that she intended to marry Liu Fuda, sent the entire Liu household into an uproar. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Her father, who had always doted on her, flew into a rage. Her mother, Lady He, wept in distress, pinching Liu Yunshua's arm. Have you lost your mind? You're turning down the position of a fine young general's wife to marry some lowly merchant? Your father and the general's household have already arranged this marriage. Now you say you won't go? Do you want to kill your father? To destroy us all? Liu Yunshua pointed at me, raising an eyebrow. What does it matter? I have my sister. Don't I? Let my sister marry into the general's household. Father hasn't even told them yet whether I'm the eldest or second daughter. She looked at me, her smile fake and hollow. Sister, you just happen to not want to marry young Master Liu, right? I'm doing this for your sake. Giving you such a wonderful match. Just wait and enjoy your newfound fortune. Ever since childhood, she'd been just like her concubine mother, always fighting for everything. Always competing for everything. Father's affection. Gifts during festivals and holidays, they had to snatch every single one. Liu Yunshua had always been nothing but a kicker when I was down. A looter in my hour of need, never once thinking of me. I knew her inside out. And I knew her intentions toward me were far from kind. In my past life, she chose the young general. But by their wedding day, Qin Yuzheng hadn't returned from the frontier. She consummated her marriage clutching a rooster. Later, she waited day and night. For reasons unknown, Qin Yuzheng never came back. Instead, she received a divorce decree. The general's mansion had no place for her anymore. Banishing her back to the Liu residence, she became the laughingstock of the entire capital. Even her father, who had always doted on her, now found her disgraceful. He declared she would have been better off dying in the general's residence than being cast out. This lifetime, she wants me to marry Qin Yuzheng, nothing more than to watch me suffer. To drive me to ruin. But the truth of my rebirth, and the vile schemes she harbors, are known only to her and me. Madam, he could no longer sit still. She shouted at Liu Yunshua. Shut your mouth. Madam, he then turned to her father, her eyes brimming with tears as she pleaded softly. Ming Lang, Yunshua is young and doesn't understand. Please don't be angry. I will persuade her to marry into the general's mansion properly. Yet, Liu Yunshua delivered a shocking statement. I already belong to young Master Liu. Those words made father's face turn ashen. Silencing him, her mother fainted on the spot from the shock. My mother, equally troubled, murmured, when has that illegitimate sister of yours ever considered your welfare? Who knows what scheme she's plotting with this sudden marriage swap? I replied calmly. She's plotting like a weasel paying New Year's calls to a hen. Mother, don't worry. This swap is a blessing. Mother pondered for a moment before smiling. Indeed it is. The young general is certainly far superior to that merchant's son. I smiled without comment. I cared little whether the young general was strong or not. What I desired was to sever all ties with the Liu family. In my previous life, I had heard Liu Yunshua weep to her mother more than once, complaining that the old general paid no heed to household matters. Every decision rested solely with the old general's wife. A fierce woman. She'd also overheard servants whispering that General Qin Yuzheng felt nothing for women, he was impotent. Upon learning of the arranged marriage, he deliberately hid at the frontier to avoid returning to the capital. I imagine that after Liu Yunshua was married off, he could no longer evade the situation. So he gave her a divorce decree. Didn't he? And that divorce decree is precisely what I want. For now, I only need to save up more gold and silver. When the time comes, I'll bring mother out of the Liu residence. Then, the sky will be my limit, and the sea my playground. Because Lu Yunxue is pregnant. The originally set date has been moved up. Father wants me and Lu Yunxue to marry on the same day. At the general's residence, Qin Yuzhen likely held little regard for the marriage. So they imposed few demands, leaving all arrangements to us. Father claimed marrying both daughters simultaneously would be more efficient. Yet the efficiency was solely on my end. Lu Yunshue's preparations spared no expense. Whatever other brides acquired, she doubled down on. Silver flowed out like water. Every item had to be the finest, the most costly. All the household servants were reassigned to serve them, preparing for her wedding. Even the quick-witted maids and servants from my mother's quarters were summoned to assist. No one was left to help make my wedding gown. Mother was furious. She went to father to plead my case. As always, she gained nothing but earned herself confinement. Heartbroken for me, she wept until her eyes swelled shut. It's all because I'm useless. Making you suffer like this. I smiled to comfort her. Life is long. Who knows who will suffer more in the end? My mother wasn't useless. She simply lacked Lady He's cunning, her gift for manipulative rhetoric, and her pride in currying favor with men. But I've always believed that relying on oneself is the most dependable path. Even leaning on a daughter is far more sustainable than clinging to a man. Fortunately, Mother has a big heart. Soon, I calmed her down. She stopped crying and picked up her needle and thread, continuing to sew my wedding gown. And thank goodness she was so resilient. For otherwise, she likely wouldn't have endured those agonizing years of humiliation. The wedding day drew near. Lu Fuda came daily bearing gifts, boxes upon boxes of gold, silver, and jewels. Not just for Lu Yunxue. Father and he sure received their share too. In contrast, from the general's residence came only a phoenix crown and ceremonial robes, nothing else. Even that phoenix crown and ceremonial robes couldn't match the extravagance of what Lu Fuda gave Lu Yunxue. Not only were there no gifts, but Qin Yuzhen himself was still stationed at the frontier, far from the capital. Comparing the two sides, Father said nothing more about Lu Yunshue's decision to marry Lu Fuda. Madame He's face gradually softened into a smile. Only I knew this was Lu Fuda's usual tactic for charming women. He fancied any woman with even a hint of beauty. He loved one after another, discarding the old the moment a new one came along. His tactics were always the same: fixate on a woman, shower her with gold and silver. The more he gave, the more shamelessly he'd turn on her when boredom struck, even demanding back a single needle he'd gifted. On the wedding day, the Lu family went all out. Gongs blared to clear the way. An 8-man palanquin carried him. Lu Fuda decked out in wedding finery studded with gold and silver. A pearl so large it seemed to fill his ceremonial cap. The bride-receiving procession was a spectacle of pomp and circumstance. On my end, however, it wasn't until the auspicious hour that someone finally arrived from the general's residence, profusely apologizing to me. They did bring an 8-man palanquin, but the groom himself was nowhere to be seen. Spectators mocked me for dreaming of climbing the social ladder, only to discover the general's household didn't regard me with the slightest respect. Lu Yunxue, who had anticipated this outcome, couldn't contain her amusement. With schadenfreude, she feigned concern. Sister, I told my husband we didn't need such pomp, but he insisted, saying I deserved all the world's riches. Doesn't that make you feel a little bitter? If you ask me, the general's household is just too cruel. I thought since you've always been so unpleasant, even the servants despise and bully you there, I'd give up my match with the general's family so you could enjoy some happiness. Who knew they wouldn't even acknowledge you? How will you manage living out your days alone now? I let her mock and sneer, replying impassively, Thank you for your concern, but I shan't trouble you with my affairs. Seeing my calm composure, she seemed to catch something. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she leaned close to my ear, her voice cold with threat. Your envy and jealousy won't change a thing. It's all your fate. And mark my words, whatever you may dream of in the future. Stay far away from my husband. If I ever catch you daring to covet him, I won't let you off. Humph. Was she afraid I'd reincarnated too and would go looking for Lu Fuda again? Her own narrow-mindedness made her assume everyone was like her. How laughable. Lu Yunxue, beaming with triumph, was helped onto the 8-man palanquin heading for Lu Fuda's side. Just then, the urgent clatter of hooves echoed through the air. A tall, dark horse charged through the parting crowd, appearing before the Lu residence as if descending from the heavens. Upon its back sat a man clad in crimson, towering and imposing. The dust of his long journey could not obscure his extraordinary handsomeness. The servants sent by the general's residence to escort the bride rushed forward, addressing him as the young general. The young general rode up to me, deftly dismounting. His large hand grasped mine. His voice was hoarse and weary from the long journey. Yet his eyes shone brightly. "Forgive me, madam. I hope I'm not too late." His appearance instantly overshadowed Lu Fuda, whose gilded robes and gold ornaments now made him look like a crooked-mouthed, cross-eyed dwarf. He was the young General Qin Yuzheng. Everyone was stunned, especially Lu Yunxue. Having lived 2 lifetimes, this was her first glimpse of Qin Yuzheng's true form. The shock nearly sent her tumbling headfirst from the sedan chair. "Madam," he and several maids and servants caught Lu Yunxue. "Madam," he stared at Qin Yuzheng, her envy so intense it nearly tore her handkerchief. I was quite surprised too. I recalled that in my previous life, Lu Yunxue had been married to the general's household for years without Qin Yuzheng ever returning. Unexpectedly, this life unfolded differently. He had actually rushed back to marry his bride right at the moment of the grand wedding. However, seeing he sure and Lu Yunxue displeased brought me a sense of satisfaction. I couldn't help but curve my lips into a smile directed at Qin Yuzheng. "Not too late. You've arrived just in time." Qin Yuzheng and I clasped hands. As I stepped into the sedan chair, I passed Lu Yunxue. I saw Lady He pinching Lu Yunxue again, muttering under her breath, "What kind of nonsense dream is this? It can't even get one thing right. Didn't it say that little slut would be a widow in her own marriage? Then what's going on with this Qin fellow?" Lu Yunxue, seeing Qin Yuzheng's ethereal beauty, glared with envy so intense her teeth nearly ground to dust. But now that things had come to this, her jealousy was useless. She quickly shifted her focus to the riches ahead, sneering coldly at he. "Sure, you can't judge a book by its cover. He's nothing but a hollow shell. Mother, don't forget, in my dream, I'm destined to be the wife of an imperial merchant. I'll have more silver than I could ever spend in 8 lifetimes. Isn't that better than clinging to an empty facade?" No wonder Madam He had once looked down on Lu Fuda as a son-in-law. Yet her opinion of him gradually shifted. It turned out Lu Yunxue had revealed Lu Fuda's future as an imperial merchant, a prophecy from her past life, to Madam He under the guise of a dream. But Lu Yunxue didn't know that Lu Fuda was, through and through, a worthless piece of rotten mud propped up against a wall. I've always had a knack for business. In my previous life, I forced Lu Fuqian's bedridden father to teach me every trick of the trade. After years of hard work, I finally elevated the Lu family to imperial merchants. The condition Lu's father imposed was that I must forever present myself as his son's subordinate, forever confined to the shadows. Lu Yunxue, however, possessed no business acumen whatsoever. Her sole focus was climbing the social ladder by clinging to men and living off their success, all while harboring the delusional dream of becoming the wife of an imperial merchant. The general's residence was bustling with guests. It was then that I learned Qin Yuzheng's border garrison had achieved a resounding victory and was already on its triumphant return to the capital. Even at the fastest pace, it would take over a month before they arrived. Only Qin Yuzheng had rushed back alone, day and night, spurring his horse to the limit. Even his family hadn't expected him to return so swiftly. The old general and his wife, along with the guests, all swarmed around Qin Yuzheng, completely ignoring me, the bride. After the wedding ceremony and entering the bridal chamber, I finally had some leisure, though I was rather hungry. I hadn't had a chance to eat all day. After sending the maid Lian Yuan out to find food, I lifted my veil, intending to nibble on some pastries from the table to tide me over. Just then, the door knocked, and Qin Yuzheng entered. His large, knuckle-bony hand held a food box. Feeling awkward, I took the veil. Shall I put it back on? Will you help me lift it? Qin Yuzheng shook his head with a smile. It doesn't matter. We're husband and wife now. Whether you lift it or I do, it's the same. He was easy to get along with. He opened the food box, revealing various dishes inside. I didn't know what you liked, so I packed a little of everything. I curved my lips into a smile. Thank you. I'd be divorced anyway. There was no need to worry about my image in front of him. I sat down, picked up my rice bowl, and began eating with my chopsticks. He took a seat across from me. I looked up at him. Just go about your business. Don't mind me. He smiled back at me. I have no other business. Considering his unspoken predicament, I guessed he'd come specifically to explain things to me but felt too embarrassed to speak up. He didn't seem like a bad person, and he'd even helped me out earlier. I decided to be direct with him, saving him the awkwardness of tonight's wedding night. I spoke first. Now that we've exchanged vows, the young general and I are allies in the same boat. I understand why you came. We're both bound by parental decree and matchmaker's words. Your marriage to me was a necessity. Don't feel awkward. When the time is right, just give me the divorce papers. I'll leave without hesitation. Qin Yuzheng's smile faded. After a moment's silence, he asked, Is there something about me you dislike? I had thought my understanding would lighten his mood, but his question caught me off guard. I humbly replied, How could that be? The young general is so valiant and extraordinary, how could I possibly be dissatisfied? It's just that matters of the heart cannot be forced. I understand that well. Qin Yuzheng gave a faint, almost resigned smile. Then let us be allies for now. After that, he offered me his bed, taking the lower couch himself. The next day, I gathered all my valuable possessions, preparing them as capital for trade. In my past life, Lu Fuda rode on my achievements, basking in the glory and perks of being an imperial merchant while wallowing in debauchery, drinking, gambling, and whoring. This time around, I would become a wealthy merchant myself, trampling Lu Fuda underfoot and dragging the entire Lu family into the mud. Just as I was gathering silver, Qin Yuzheng returned. He brought back a small chest filled entirely with gold and silver, claiming it was a fresh imperial reward. Then, he pulled a large chest from under the bed, also brimming with gold and silver, saying it was his own savings. He transferred the gold and silver from the small chest into the large one. My eyes burned with envy, and before my brain could catch up, I blurted out, Ally, wanna make some silver? Qin Yuzheng turned to me, his expression pure and bewildered. I launched into a wild, rambling explanation, finally wrapping it up with money begets money. You know the drill. Qin Yuzheng, you need silver? Me, to be precise. I'd use your silver to earn even more silver for you. Just as I was about to launch into another lengthy sales pitch, he slid the key to the large chest toward me. Here. Use it however you like. Me? I swallowed hard. Just so we're clear, money-making ventures do carry some risk. Sometimes you might lose. Qin Yuzheng, if we lose, I'll just earn it back. Me? Thank you for your trust. You're welcome. Whether as an ally or my wife, you're no stranger to me. Me? That said, I still drafted a partnership agreement, detailing his silver investment for future accounting. As I left, My mother-in-law stopped me. She scolded me sternly, saying a newlywed like me shouldn't be out and about so soon after the wedding. It was scandalous and immoral. Qin Yuzheng stepped out, which law says women can't leave the house. Mother, you go out every other day. And I haven't seen you sentenced to anything. His words left my mother-in-law speechless, choking on her own indignation. Qin Yuzheng shielded me, escorting me all the way out of the estate. In my past life, I faced constant obstacles. Yet I shouldered them alone, solving each problem by myself. Lu Fuda only endlessly demanded silver from me to squander on debauchery. He could never be my ally, only a burden and an enemy. Lu's parents, too, did nothing but harass, mock, and exploit me. While running my business, I also had to contend with them, leaving me utterly exhausted every single day. It was precisely this constant struggle that ultimately led me to fall into Lu Yunshua's trap, where I was burned alive in the temple. But this lifetime, Qin Yuzheng is nothing like that scum Lu Fuda. This ally is truly reliable. My first shop, specializing in women's goods, opened its doors. Being a woman myself and armed with the experience of my past life, I stocked the shop with all the popular items women needed, many of which weren't even available on the market yet. The shop manager was an employee I poached from Lu Fuda. He was a skilled businessman but had a straightforward temperament, constantly suppressed by the Lu family. He never got a chance to shine. I hired him and entrusted him with full responsibility for my first shop. Grateful for my recognition of his talent, he threw himself into the work with great enthusiasm. Soon, the day of the return visit arrived. Lu Yunxue and Lu Fuda rode in a luxurious carriage, dressed in brocades and silk, adorned with gold and jewels. They seemed determined to make sure everyone knew they were wealthy. I returned alone, still on foot. Lu Yunxue gloated, her laughter shaking like a trembling flower branch. With a sarcastic sneer, she remarked, "Sister, how pitiful. If I'd known you had no carriage, I could have sent a servant to fetch you. You wouldn't have had to stand out in the cold wind this early. You have no idea how spacious and comfortable my carriage is." Her face was caked in bright red and green makeup, flaking off with every laugh. Lu Fuda joined in, "Haven't seen you in a month, and I must say, I'm truly impressed. Sister, you're growing more beautiful by the day. Today, I hadn't disguised myself as ugly. At our reunion, he seemed stunned by my appearance, his eyes now fixed on me, leering and repulsive. But my disgust didn't last long. Lu Yunxue yanked him back into the carriage. Soon, I heard her muttering under her breath about his shamelessness, flirting even with his sister-in-law. Before she could finish, I heard the crack of a slap against skin, followed by Lu Fuda's curses, "You worthless woman. If I don't beat you daily, you'll tear the roof off. I'll speak to whomever I please. If you interfere again, I'll beat you to death." Lu Yunxue sobbed muffled cries inside the carriage, likely afraid I'd hear her. She dared not cry aloud, struggling to stifle her sobs. Suddenly, I understood why her makeup was so thick today, even smeared down her neck. It must have been to hide the bruises on her body. That she was beaten in the Lu household didn't surprise me in the least. Whether in this life or the last, marriage was merely my stepping stone to escape my father. Within days, he began taking concubines into the house. I focused solely on business and saving money. No matter how many women he sought, I let him be. From start to finish, he was nothing but a worthless man in my eyes. Thus, aside from him demanding silver from me, our daily lives remained separate as water and river, coexisting peacefully. But Lu Yunxue was different from me. Spoiled since childhood, she couldn't endure neglect, much less tolerate her man seeking other women. Yet Lu Fuda was a debauched man, rotten to the core. To him, Women were no different from possessions. With so many beautiful women in the world, he grew tired of them quickly. Just the other day, I heard that barely days after his wedding, Lu Fuda was already head over heels for a new courtesan. Consumed by jealousy and resentment, Lu Yunxue hired someone to harm that courtesan. Lu Fuda seized this evidence of her intent to harm others. Growing even more contemptuous of both Lu Yunxue and our fourth-rank official father, he deliberately took that courtesan into his household. Who knows what fierce quarrel Lu Yunxue must have had with him, leaving her face, neck, and body covered in injuries. Now she even feels jealous of me, her married elder sister. It's clear she still hasn't woken up to Lu Fuda's true nature and clings to the delusion of holding his heart. Her foolishness actually suits me just fine. The grudge she holds for burning me and my mother alive in her past life won't even require me to dirty my own hands. Using the Lu family as my blade will avenge more than half of it. Lu Fuda and Lu Yunxue may bicker, but as a merchant, he dares not challenge the authorities. Moreover, silver is the last thing Lu Fuda lacks at present. This visit to his in-laws brought not only gold and silver, but also a mountain of precious gifts. Father and lady he no longer dwell on as taking a concubine within the first month of marriage. Instead, they treat him as an honored guest, showering him with kindness beyond measure. The banquet table was laden with sumptuous dishes. As for me, not only did I receive no gifts or silver, but even Qin Yuzhen didn't accompany me back. One could easily guess how utterly disregarded I was in my husband's household. I might well die quietly in the general's residence any day now. My father, who had once hoped to rely on the general's influence, now showed nothing but disdain toward me and my mother. Even at family gatherings, there was no place for me or my mother. I pretended not to notice father's coldness. Pulling my mother along, I forced my way to the table. I deliberately put on a greedy expression. So much food. How wonderful. Mother immediately grabbed 2 large empty bowls. She piled various dishes into them, handing me one heaped full. Her voice filled with concern. Chewer, you've suffered at the general's residence. Seize this chance to eat your fill today. Then, she picked up the other bowl and began eating herself, muttering to me as she ate, come back often. Though your father doesn't earn much silver, your brother-in-law is wealthy. He sends gold and silver to your father daily. If you ever lack food or drink, just come back and eat your fill. I feigned sudden interest and turned to my father. Father, I've set my sights on a jade rui scepter. It only costs a few hundred taels. Since I don't have the silver, why don't you lend it to me? My mother suddenly stood up, dashed to my father's study, filled a bag from the silver chest Lu Fuda had just delivered, and hurried back. Mother handed the silver to me. Chewer, he's your father. What's his is yours. Take it and spend freely. When it's gone, come back and ask your father for more. Are you two planning a rebellion? Father roared in fury. Lu Yunxue leapt up and snatched the silver from my hands. She sneered coldly. Who do you think you are? Deserving charity from my family? Mark my words, no matter how wealthy my husband's family is, I'd rather feed it to the dogs than give it to you. Got it? I remained unperturbed. Still smiling cheerfully. I'm not asking you for it. I'm asking father. He's my mother's husband. Her sky. Marry a man. Marry a man. For clothes and food. She eats my father's food. Drinks my father's drink. Takes my father's silver. It's only natural. Unless father disowns mother and divorces her, then he needn't care for her. But a day as husband and wife creates 100 days of affection. Father, you couldn't bear to divorce mother. Could you? Madam, he had long wanted father to divorce mother. But after mother's parents passed away, she prioritized me above all else. At the Lu household, she yielded time and again, bending to father's every whim. He didn't want the shame of abandoning his wife of hardship. so he kept her in the manor. But now, with my mother and I acting as if we'd thrown caution to the wind, playing the spoiled brat, shamelessly preparing to spend the rest of our lives leeching off her family, father could no longer care about any notion of abandoning one's wife in hardship. He roared, "Get out! Both you and your shameless daughter, get out!" Mother's face turned cold. "Fine. If you want me gone." As my daughter said, "Give me the divorce papers. From this day forward, we are no longer husband and wife. My daughter is no longer your daughter. Whether we live in luxury or face death, it will have nothing to do with you." "Madam," he promptly put on a pitiful act, squeezing out a few tears as she pleaded. "Ming Lang, she knows you're soft-hearted and won't bear to divorce her. That's why she dares to be so brazen. She has no affection left for you whatsoever. Do you really want to keep her here, letting her and her daughter torment us for the rest of our lives? Torment Xiao Shui and Fu De?" Father snorted through his nostrils before finally uttering, "Since you show no mercy, don't blame me for being ruthless." He summoned servants, and soon the divorce papers were drawn up. He then ordered both my mother and me to leave. Upon receiving the papers, my mother and I exchanged a knowing glance before turning and rushing off to pack our belongings. Father, he sure, and Lu Yunxue were unaware that today's events had been meticulously planned in advance. The sole purpose was for my mother to leave the Lu household, divorce father, and regain her freedom. In my previous life, as the Lu family grew increasingly wealthy, while Lu Yunxue faced disfavor in the general's residence, father and he sure coveted the Lu family's fortune. Father even confined my mother, using her to extort silver from me. Every time I wished to see my mother, I had to hand over large sums of silver to father. My mother tried every possible means to escape their clutches, but none succeeded. Therefore, in this life, before I turn the tables, I will secure my mother's freedom. Before returning to my in-laws this morning, I sought out my mother. I asked if she would agree to divorce father if I helped her arrange it. I assumed many women would find the idea of divorce unbearable. Unexpectedly, upon hearing I'd secured lodging for her and found work, she readily agreed to divorce father and endorsed my plan. Now, we've succeeded. Anything of value in my mother's room had long been seized by Mrs. He through various schemes. After packing, we had only 2 small bundles. As we stepped out the gate, Lu Fuda, like a persistent ghost, suddenly appeared. He grinned lewdly. "Sister, where are you headed? You have no idea how harsh the world is out there. Without a man to support you, your mother would starve to death on the streets." He inched closer to me. "Sister, since the young general doesn't care for you anyway, I say instead of enduring a lonely widowhood, why not come with me? You'll live in luxury, enjoying the finer things forever." Earlier at the banquet, he'd kept his distance. Clearly, he'd been waiting for this moment to take advantage. I laughed. "I've recently learned a new skill, reading faces. Just now, I studied yours. Your fortune is unreliable. You'll never truly enjoy lasting prosperity. Because, my friend, your destiny simply can't bear the weight of such overwhelming wealth." Lu Fuda didn't believe a word of it. Not only did he disbelieve, he treated it as a joke, laughing so hard tears streamed down his face. I let him laugh. As far as I knew, his father, who'd been bedridden for years, was now growing weaker by the day. Once his father passed away, the entire Lu family would crumble like scattered sand. Besides, that good-for-nothing Lu Fuda was no match for me. With such a formidable opponent like me around, the Lu family would soon be finished. As Lu Fuda laughed heartily, Lu Yunxue, who had been watching him closely, appeared immediately. She assumed Lu Fuda was enjoying a pleasant conversation with me, hence his cheerful demeanor. "I knew you'd be up to no good. You slut! daring to covet my husband. I'll beat you to a pulp. She stormed forward, her fury boiling over. Without a word, she raised her hand to slap me across the face. But I blocked it in time. I turned and slapped her twice in return, my voice cold. Stop acting like a mad dog biting everyone you see. Your man has no self-control, and only you would treasure such a filthy, stinking thing. I don't want him. Now. My mother and I have nothing to do with them anymore. I won't tolerate another bit of their nonsense. I pulled open the gate and left with my mother. Just then, Qin Yuzheng's carriage arrived. Seeing us emerge, Qin Yuzheng, dressed in rich brocade robes, leaped down and helped my mother into the carriage. This carriage was in no way inferior to the one shared by Lu Fuda and Lu Yunxue. My mother was both astonished and overjoyed, yet also bewildered. Earlier, when I'd asked her about her willingness to divorce, I'd only mentioned the plan to leave the Lu household together. I hadn't told her about the agreement I'd reached with Qin Yuzheng. Therefore, she'd assumed I wasn't welcome at Qin Yuzheng's place. Unexpectedly, Qin Yuzheng had followed my instructions. He hadn't accompanied me inside the house but had waited outside the gate the entire time. Lu Yunxue was so stunned she forgot to argue with me. A servant had already dashed inside to report. Before long, father and mother he came running out to greet us. My father instantly shed his earlier cold demeanor toward me. As her father-in-law, he warmly invited Qin Yuzheng inside. I let out a timely, cold laugh. You and my mother have already divorced. It's signed and sealed. You have no connection to me anymore. My husband is no longer your son-in-law. From now on, I only have a mother, not a father. Qin Yuzheng was quick-witted. He promptly and unceremoniously distanced himself from my father, deliberately adopting an official tone. Then this general will no longer have a father-in-law, only a mother-in-law. He supported my mother, speaking gently and considerately. Mother-in-law, please get into the carriage. I'll help you. Father. He saw Qin Yuzheng didn't even accompany us on the return visit. Assuming I was just like my mother, unloved within the inner quarters. Who could have imagined Qin Yuzheng would treat me so well? Actually listening to everything I said? He even helped me, assisting my mother in deceiving him into the divorce. Father desperately tried to salvage the situation. Young general, please hear me out. No time. Qin Yuzheng carefully guided my mother into the carriage. I walked toward the carriage as well. Father was so enraged he rolled his eyes, nearly losing his balance. Madam He and Lu Yunxue steadied him. As I passed them, I caught Lu Yunshue's hushed, icy voice. Father, no need to fret. You still have me and my husband. Just wait and see. Within years, Qin Yuzheng will perish on the battlefield. Once that slut becomes a widow, we'll deal with her. Then we'll see how arrogant she can still be. My heart skipped a beat. Qin Yuzheng would die in battle? But she mentioned a few years. Who knew exactly how many? Months later, Qin Yuzheng was set to march again. He seemed to have gone without sleep. Each time I awoke, I found him watching me in the darkness. Lu Yunshue's words echoed in my mind. She said Qin Yuzheng would perish on the battlefield. To others, it might sound like a curse, but I knew it must be something she had experienced in her past life. The thought that Qin Yuzheng's departure meant a permanent farewell stirred a deep reluctance within me. I told him earnestly, be careful. Your life is precious. I'll wait for you to return. Qin Yuzheng's eyes lit up like stars. You want me to come back? Of course, I replied. So you must return alive. I'll wait for you. He grinned, teeth flashing. All right. Free from the Lu family's constraints. This lifetime I threw myself wholeheartedly into business. Within 2 years, my ventures spanned every aspect of daily life: clothing, food, housing, and transportation. I also sponsored numerous promising talents. Any opportunity to earn silver, I seized without hesitation. Even several best-selling storytellers who captivated the capital were under my wing. Through this storybook trade, my mother-in-law and I became as close as sisters. She adored reading those storybooks. Who would have thought beneath her fierce exterior lay such a romantic heart? Not only did I secure the latest storybooks for her first, but I also helped her become close friends with several of the storybook writers. 2 years later, Lu Fuda took over after his father passed away. Lu Fuda's life grew increasingly dissolute. Nearly every idle rich young man in the capital became his friend, and his spending knew no bounds. Day after day, he caroused with his unsavory friends, developing addictions to gambling and opium. The Lu family's longtime steward and partners gradually lost all faith in him, one by one abandoning him. The Lu family's shops, money houses, and other businesses closed one after another. I picked up the best ones and took them all over. Not only did I acquire the Lu family's assets, but I also took on their capable clerks and managers. Within just 3 years, the Lu family collapsed, and a new wealthy merchant, Mr. Han, rose to prominence, far surpassing the former Lu family. After my mother divorced Father Lu, I changed my surname to follow my mother's, Han. I bought my mother a large mansion with a courtyard. It was larger and more luxurious than the Lu family's. Now, my mother spends her days either doing embroidery when she's truly bored, or socializing with friends, sipping tea with her sisters, strolling through the streets, savoring fine cuisine, and admiring the most handsome young actors in the theater. Lu Yunxue waited 3 years. By the time her child turned 2, she still hadn't seen Lu Fuda become an imperial merchant. Instead, she ended up with a smoker and a gambler. The vast fortune accumulated by 2 generations of the Lu family was squandered by Lu Fuda in a single year. She finally gave up hope and demanded a divorce. But before she could obtain the divorce papers, the half-human, half-ghost Lu Fuda, driven by greed, sold her and their child. The child was sold to a slave trader, while Lu Yunxue was sold into a brothel. Madam, he resorted to crying, screaming, and threatening suicide before her father. Lu's father finally relented and paid a large sum to redeem Lu Yunxue from the brothel. But the child had been sold to an unknown destination and could not be found. Spotting Lu Fuda, now reduced to a beggar-like state, on the street, hatred surged within Lu Yunxue. Seizing a sharp knife from a nearby pork stall, she charged forward and slashed at him repeatedly. Lu Fuda was hacked to a bloody pulp. In broad daylight, in full view of the crowd, Lu Yunxue, who had only just gained her freedom from the brothel, committed murder. In the blink of an eye, she found herself behind bars. 3 years later, Father Lu remembered his daughter once more. He and mother he came to the general's residence to find me. I was busy outside. Mother-in-law, aware of my family situation, deliberately gave them the cold shoulder, rudely making them wait outside the mansion gates. When I returned, Mother he and Father Lu were shivering in the small sedan chair outside. Father Lu assumed his paternal authority and declared matter-of-factly, "You must already know about your sister's imprisonment. Lu Fuda has wronged her deeply, and she acted out of desperation. Have your father-in-law find someone to secure her release. Additionally, give me some silver to make arrangements within the prison." I scoffed. I'm not important enough to enlist my father-in-law's help, especially for a murder charge. I wouldn't dare ask him for such a favor. Father Lu flared with anger. But she's your own sister. I replied bluntly. I don't acknowledge her. Madam, he put on a pitiful expression. Yun Chu, are you still holding a grudge against me and Yunxue? If you still can't tolerate us, I'll leave. Just save Yunxue, and I'll depart from the Lu family. Abandon your father, and return him to your mother. Is that acceptable? Just then, an imperial messenger arrived. It was the emperor personally conferring upon me the title of imperial merchant, bestowing vast rewards. This followed another victory at the frontier. Throughout the campaign, I had continuously donated silver and grain to the front lines. Qin Yuzheng fought for 3 years, and I donated for 3 years, never once stopping. He Shi and Father Lu were both stunned into silence. After I received the imperial decree, Father Lu sought me out again. His expression was complex. His tone humbled. Yun Chu, where is your mother now? I wish to find her. Looking at his aged face, I smiled. Save it. My mother wouldn't give you the time of day now. Father Lu. Father Lu's expression grew even more awkward, a mix of frustration and anger. But mostly the presumption of a father who seemed to think I owed them by birthright. He said, for the sake of Yunxua calling you sister all these years, save your sister. She's being tortured beyond recognition in there. If she stays locked up much longer, she might not come out alive. You'd feel heartbroken seeing her. Since you've been named imperial merchant and made such great contributions to the royal family, you don't even need to go through the old general. Just step forward yourself and plead with the emperor. You can save your sister's life. I thought, if I were the one imprisoned, he'd never lift a finger to plead for me, let alone utter such shameless words. I sneered coldly. I'll go see her. I went to see her, but not to save her. She called me sister, yet she always sought my life. I will never forget how, in my past life, consumed by jealousy, she set a fire that burned me and my mother alive. Qin Yuzheng returned. He came back alive, bearing military honors. He held me tight, again and again. I knew these 3 years must have seen him escape death countless times before finally returning to my side. I didn't push him away. Instead, I held him close. He rested his chin against my neck and murmured, I listened to you and returned safely. Can I be more than just your ally? Can we be true husband and wife? I smiled and softly replied with a gentle yes. That night, he didn't sleep on the couch. He chose to share my bed. Unlike his usual reserve, he embraced me and kissed me. I couldn't help but feel a little worried. Worried he might fail later and hurt his pride. But outright refusal seemed like it would hurt him even more. I gritted my teeth and decided to give it a try. After all, it wasn't like I was incapable. And that one try nearly cost me half my life. I have no idea how the servants at the general's residence got by, serving him day in and day out. Yet they couldn't even tell if he was capable or not. How else could such absurd rumors spread? Qin Yuzheng and I, both new to such matters, found ourselves utterly captivated. Our passion consumed us for half the night, and I didn't wake until the sun was high in the sky. Qin Yuzheng handed me a jade pendant, saying, return to its rightful owner. I recognized it instantly. It was the one I'd always worn close to my heart. When I was just a teenager, my mother and I had gone to the temple to pray for peace. My mother obtained it for me from a master monk, who explained that this jade was born as a pair, a mandarin duck pendant. The owner of the other half, he said, would be my destined soulmate. Later, while walking the streets, I encountered soldiers raising funds for border garrison troops. Impulsively, I donated all my money and belongings, including this very jade pendant. I asked Qin Yuzheng in astonishment, how did this end up in your possession? And how did you know it was mine? He produced another piece, forming a perfect pair with mine. The 2 jade pieces fit together seamlessly, joining to form a perfect circle. Qin Yuzheng smiled and said, this is what they call a match made in heaven. You were destined to be my wife. Me. If fate truly exists, how then do I explain my past life? I saw Lu Yunxue in the gloomy dungeon. Her face was gaunt and haggard. Seeing her now, reduced to a beggar's state, I had forgotten her former vibrant beauty. Spotting me, she roared with bitter hatred, "You wretch! You're reborn too, aren't you? You stole Lu Fuda's fortune. You stole his destined life. Heaven won't let you off. Wait for hell." I couldn't help but laugh aloud, blaming everything on fate because you're incompetent? How laughable. You got one thing right, I am reborn. But I didn't steal, I returned what rightfully belonged to him. In my past life, I guarded the Lu family's wealth and amassed even greater riches for them. If you must blame anyone, blame your own stupidity. Anyone with half a brain could see Lu Fuda was a worthless piece of trash. Heaven knows how satisfying it was to watch you beg to marry that good-for-nothing after my rebirth. Lu Yunxue shook her head. Impossible. It couldn't be you. You're a woman, how could you possibly outdo a man? How is that even possible? I cut her off coldly. Just because you couldn't doesn't mean I can't. Lu Yunxue was furious. She laughed maniacally, "You worthless trash. What do you think you'll gain? Qin Yuzheng is a good-for-nothing too. Even with 2 lifetimes, you'll still be a living widow." Ha 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 ha. I sneered, disappointed again? Last life, Qin Yuzheng was useless because of you. This life, with me in his place, he's quite capable. I should thank you for not choosing him this time. It let me accidentally marry the right man. This time, I win both in love and in gain. Lu Yunxue choked on her rage, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Her eyes locked on me, wild and savage. I regret it. I regret not killing you the moment I opened my eyes after rebirth. Next time, I will kill you again. I scattered phosphorus powder and sparks toward her, just as she had done to me and my mother in her past life. Soon, Lu Yunxue was engulfed in flames. She screamed in agony, writhing on the ground. Only when her flesh was scorched beyond recognition did the prisoners I had bribed earlier rush over to douse the fire with water. But by then, Lu Yunxue was already on the brink of death. What I wanted was for her to suffer worse than death. Perhaps heaven granting us another lifetime was compensation for me. And for the young general. As for Lu Yunxue, good and evil always meet their just reward. Those with twisted hearts are destined to meet an untimely end. Extra, Qin Yuzheng's past life. At 12 years old, Qin Yuzheng fell ill with a strange disease that defied all medicine. His mother sent him to live in a temple. One scorching summer day, he bathed at a spring behind the mountain. He was caught completely off guard by a girl who stumbled upon him. And just like that, Qin Yuzheng was seen from head to toe by that girl. Until his dying day, he remembered her face flushed crimson as if it might bleed. Yet she forced herself to remain composed, saying, "Don't worry. I'll forget what I saw." After staying at the temple for a month, Qin Yuzheng miraculously recovered without any medicine. Before leaving, his mother sought a protective amulet. Suddenly, a jade pendant fell from the temple hall. The master handed it to Qin Yuzheng, smiling as he declared it a heavenly gift of good fortune. His mother, utterly delighted, fastened the pendant to his waist, urging him to guard it carefully and never lose it. Qin Yuzheng found it amusing but paid it little mind. Yet upon leaving the temple, he once again bumped into the girl who had seen him completely naked. In her hand was an identical jade pendant. Staring at the 2 matching pendants, the young Qin Yuzheng felt an inexplicable flush spread across his face. Years later, he would see that jade pendant again. Qin Yuzheng was collecting donations for the army. On the street, he recognized her at a glance. Then, seeing her donate the jade pendant without hesitation, he felt inexplicably displeased. The master had said it was a sign of good fortune. How could she give it away so easily? After she left, he couldn't resist paying the soldier collecting donations to exchange silver for her jade pendant. From that day on, he carried both jade pendants with him, treasuring them as precious gems. Then, Inexplicably, the girl's image began appearing in his dreams from time to time. Whenever he dreamt of her, he couldn't help but smile, his eyes crinkling with warmth. Even the soldiers around him teased him, saying he must have someone special in his heart. A letter arrived from his family, inquiring if he had any romantic interest, as they wished to arrange a marriage for him. The image that immediately flashed through Qin Yuzheng's mind was that girl's face. But he couldn't speak of her, fearing that if the marriage didn't materialize, it would ruin her reputation. A young girl's good name was especially precious. He buried his feelings deep within himself. For years, whenever a girl approached him, he would push her away, because they weren't her. So much so that rumor spread throughout the estate that he was born without desire for women. Qin Yuzheng threw himself into earning military honors. He planned to use his achievements to petition the emperor for permission to marry. He would wed that girl. But before he could return, a twist of fate intervened. His family, repaying an unexpected favor, had already arranged his marriage, and the girl in his heart had married another. He was a step too late. So very close. The spirited young man suffered the first major blow of his life. His spirit shattered. He fell gravely ill, unable to move. His family, with no other choice, proceeded with the wedding as scheduled. When his health finally improved, he received a letter from his mother. The bride, Lu Yunxue, unable to wait for his return, had shamelessly feigned drunkenness to climb into the old general's bed. She claimed she'd heard servants whispering about Qin Yuzheng's inadequacy and, out of spite, vowed to become his concubine. She believed all men were driven by lust. To her shock, the old general kicked her off the bed, drew his sword, and nearly chopped her to pieces in his fury. In the end, the old lady of the house, desperate to protect the family's reputation, persuaded everyone to keep the incident tightly under wraps. Qin Yuzheng was only required to issue a divorce decree, banishing Lu Yunxue back to the Lu household. Later, Qin Yuzheng heard that the young woman's husband's business had grown immensely, even trading with the imperial court, making her a merchant lady of the court. With no battles at the frontier, Qin Yuzheng rarely returned to the capital, stationed year-round in distant lands. Yet no matter how far apart they were, news of her never ceased. Then, suddenly, word came that she had died. She was gone. A great fire had ended her life. That very day, Qin Yuzheng returned to the capital under the guise of a fake death. Soon, he learned the truth. She had been killed by her younger half-sister, Lu Yunxue. Driven by jealousy, that jealous woman, Lu Yunxue, had set fire to the house, burning Lu Yunxu and her mother to death. Qin Yuzheng's eyes blazed with fury. Masking his face, he raised his spear and thrust it through Lu Yunxue, piercing her clean through. At Lu Yunxu's grave, he uttered aloud for the first time the name he'd only dared whisper in midnight dreams, Yunxu. We'll settle the matter of you seeing me naked in the next life. In the next life, you'll be responsible. This time, I'll find you early, never missing you again. The end.